This video was made thanks to this awesome request. Thank you for the title suggestion, and happy watching. Before we dive into the video, let's first get to know this dark green goblin Deku concept. In this thrilling alternate universe, Izuku Midoriya takes a dark turn after being told he can't become a hero without a quirk. Fueled by rejection, Deku channels his genius intellect into science, creating the strength-enhancing Goblin formula alongside high-tech weaponry like the Goblin glider and pumpkin bombs. However, the chemical serum fractured his mind, unleashing a cackling, chaotic persona known as the Green Goblin. Armed with lethal technology and an unhinged mind, Deku takes to the skies to tear down the hero society that once abandoned him.
Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Quirkless. If you're a fan of My Hero Academia, especially awesome fanfiction stories all about Deku, you're definitely in the right place. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow anime fans, and subscribe so you never miss a new upload. Also, if you have an awesome idea or title for the next fanfiction video, drop it in the comment below. I'd love to read your suggestions. And hey, if you want to support the channel even more and keep me extra motivated to create awesome content, consider joining our channel membership. By becoming a member, you'll unlock cool perks like exclusive loyalty badges and custom stickers you can use in the comments. If you've already joined, thank you so much. Your support truly means the world to me and helps keep this channel going. Alright, let's get right into the story.
Rain had just stopped when Izuku Midoriya left the hospital. His hands were buried inside his pockets, his school bag hanging loosely from one shoulder. He had spent years dreaming about becoming a hero. Today, that dream had been crushed. All Might had told him the truth. Without a quirk, becoming a professional hero was practically impossible. Izuku had expected rejection from other people. He had heard it countless times. But hearing it from All Might hurt far more. He stopped beneath a streetlight and looked at his reflection in a puddle. Green hair, tired eyes, no quirk, nothing special. So that's really it. He kicked a small stone into the puddle. Born quirkless, therefore automatically disqualified from saving people. He gave a bitter laugh. Great system. When he returned home, Izuku told his mother that everything was fine. Then he went straight to his room. The moment the door closed, he pulled out his notebooks. Pages filled with hero analysis, physical statistics, quirk studies, medical information, and support equipment designs covered his desk. Izuku stared at them. He had spent years studying heroes. If he couldn't develop a quirk, perhaps he could create something that could replace one. He grabbed a fresh notebook. At the top of the first page, he wrote, "Human enhancement." He paused, then added another line, "Artificial physical amplification." His eyes narrowed. If quirks can change the human body, then there has to be another way to improve it. And so he began. Izuku studied everything he could find about muscles, nerves, reaction speed, adrenaline, bone density, and experimental medicine. His first formula failed. The second overheated. The third did nothing. The fourth exploded. Boom. Izuku stared at the smoking container. Okay. He wrote something down. Reduce instability. He kept working. Months passed. Eventually, he created a new compound. The liquid inside the vial was dark green. He called it the Goblin formula. It was designed to increase strength, speed, reflexes, balance, and physical endurance far beyond normal human limits. Izuku stared at the vial for several seconds. His hands tightened. This could work. Then he noticed the warning list beside his notes. Cardiac overload, neurological damage, hallucinations, personality instability, possible death. Izuku sighed. That's quite the list. He should have stopped. Instead, he continued refining it. After dozens of adjustments, He finally created a version he believed was stable enough to test on himself. Izuku prepared the syringe. His hand trembled slightly. No quirk. He looked at the green liquid. No hero training. He rolled up his sleeve. No problem. The needle entered his arm. He injected the entire dose. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, crack. Pain surged through his body. Izuku grabbed the edge of the desk as his muscles tightened. His heartbeat became violent. His vision blurred. He struggled to breathe. Another wave of pain hit him. Then suddenly, it stopped. Izuku remained still. He slowly opened his eyes. Everything seemed different. He could hear the clock ticking from across the room. His breathing had become steady. His body felt lighter, stronger, faster. He approached an old punching bag hanging in the corner. Izuku raised his fist. Just one test. He punched. Boom. The punching bag shot across the room and slammed into the wall. The metal support bent. Izuku stared at it, then at his fist. A smile appeared across his face. It worked. He laughed quietly. For the first time in years, he had something nobody could tell him he didn't possess. Power. But then he noticed something strange. Izuku looked toward the mirror. His reflection was smiling. He wasn't. His smile slowly disappeared. What? He stepped closer. The reflection looked completely normal again. Izuku frowned. Probably a hallucination. He wrote it down. Possible neurological side effect. Then he turned away. Behind him, the reflection remained in the mirror. Its smile slowly returned. A quiet laugh escaped from its lips. Hey. Izuku didn't hear it. Not yet. Izuku couldn't sleep. 3 hours had passed since the first successful injection, yet he was still sitting in his laboratory, staring at the damaged punching bag. His body felt different. Every movement was sharper. When he reached for a pen, his fingers moved before he consciously thought about it. When something fell from the desk, his hand caught it instantly. He picked up his notebook. Strength increased significantly. Reaction speed improved. Balance appears enhanced. He paused, then added another line. No immediate organ failure. Izuku looked at the green vial sitting beside him. That's good. He smiled faintly. Very good. Then a strange laugh escaped his throat. Hey. Izuku stopped writing. His eyebrows lowered. I didn't mean to do that. He stared at the mirror again. His reflection looked normal. No strange smile. No glowing eyes. Nothing unusual. Izuku shook his head and returned to his calculations. The next morning, he discovered another change. His mother dropped a glass in the kitchen. Crash. Before it could hit the floor, Izuku caught it. In one movement, his mother stared at him. Izuku. He looked at the glass in his hand. Reflex. You moved so fast. Izuku smiled. Guess I'm getting better at catching things. His mother smiled back, but Izuku noticed the concern in her eyes. He quickly changed the subject. I'm going to study. Once inside his room, he locked the door. The smile disappeared. He looked at his reflection. Something is wrong. The reflection smiled. Something is finally right. Izuku froze. His own mouth hadn't moved. He slowly stepped closer to the mirror. Who said that? Silence. Then the reflection's grin widened. You did. Izuku's eyes widened. No. Yes. The voice sounded exactly like his. But colder. More confident. More reckless. Izuku backed away from the mirror. You're not real. The reflection laughed. Neither was your dream. Izuku clenched his fists. Shut up. Why? The reflection tilted its head. Because I said something you don't like. Izuku stared at it. The voice continued. You wanted to become a hero. I still do. They said you couldn't. Izuku's jaw tightened. I'll prove them wrong. The reflection smiled. Good. The mirror suddenly returned to normal. Izuku stood there, breathing heavily. He looked down at his hands. Personality instability. He immediately wrote the words into his notebook. But the more he studied the formula, the more he realized that the changes weren't purely psychological. His muscles had become stronger. His reflexes were faster. His senses were sharper. And something inside his brain seemed to be becoming increasingly active. Izuku spent the next few days testing his limits. He could jump higher, run faster, lift weights that would have been impossible before. He even managed to break through a thick wooden board with one punch. Crack. Izuku stared at the hole. He slowly smiled. Amazing. A familiar laugh echoed inside his head. You can do better. Izuku's smile vanished. You again. Of course. What are you? There was a short silence. Then the voice answered. The part of you that isn't afraid anymore. Izuku frowned. That's not an answer. You'll figure it out. The voice disappeared. Izuku looked at the broken board. He should have been frightened. Instead, he felt excited. That night, he returned to his laboratory and opened his notebook. The original formula had been successful. But it was still incomplete. He needed something more. Better strength. Better mobility. Better equipment. Izuku began sketching. A glider. Compact turbines. Reinforced armor. Electric gauntlets. Small spherical explosives. He stared at the design for several seconds. Then he wrote a name beneath it. Goblin glider. The voice inside his head laughed. Now you're thinking. Izuku smiled. For the first time, he didn't correct it. He continued drawing until sunrise. And on the wall behind him, several sketches of a green armored figure slowly took shape. Izuku didn't know it yet, but the boy who had once wanted to become a hero was beginning to build something entirely different. Something faster, stronger, and far more dangerous. 3 weeks had passed since Izuku injected the Goblin formula. His body had continued changing. He was faster than before, stronger than any ordinary teenager should have been, and his reflexes had become almost automatic. But the strange voice in his head had also become more frequent. Izuku tried ignoring it. It didn't work. Your design is inefficient. Izuku stopped typing. He looked at the half-finished glider on his workbench. I didn't ask. You were about to place the turbines too close together. Izuku frowned. He moved the components. That actually works better. Obviously. Izuku sighed. You are incredibly annoying. And yet you keep listening. Izuku didn't answer. The glider was almost finished. Its metallic frame was compact enough to fit inside a hidden storage compartment, while 2 powerful turbines were mounted beneath the main platform. He had also designed remote controls connected directly to his gloves. One movement of his fingers could change the glider's direction. Another could activate its weapons. Izuku placed 2 small spherical devices beside it. Pumpkin bombs. Each one contained a different payload. Smoke, flash, electric discharge, and one that released a powerful concussive blast. He had deliberately avoided lethal explosives. At least for now. The voice in his head chuckled. You're holding back. I'm trying not to kill anyone. Why? Izuku stopped. Because I'm not a murderer. Silence. Then the voice replied. Not yet. Izuku's expression hardened. Never. He closed the weapons compartment. That night, Izuku tested the glider for the first time. He launched it from the roof of an abandoned warehouse. The turbines activated. The machine shot forward. Izuku jumped onto it. Wind slammed against his face. His eyes widened. This is. He leaned forward. The glider accelerated. Fast. He turned sharply between 2 buildings. The machine followed perfectly. Izuku laughed. For a moment, he forgot everything. The rejection. The insults. The years of being treated as useless. He was finally moving through the sky. Then the voice spoke. Faster. Izuku grinned. You don't have to tell me twice. He pushed the throttle. The glider surged forward. Roar. Izuku flew over the city. When he returned to the warehouse, he immediately began working on the costume. Green reinforced armor covered his torso. A dark cloak protected his back. The mask was the most difficult part. Izuku designed it to resemble a twisted goblin face, with sharp features and glowing lenses. He put it on. The reflection in the mirror no longer looked like Izuku Midoriya. It looked like something else. Something dangerous. The voice laughed. Perfect. Izuku stared at himself. It's just a mask. Of course. He reached for the gloves. Electric coils were built into the palms. He activated one. Crack. Blue sparks danced across his fingers. Izuku smiled. Non-lethal shock. For now. Stop saying that. He pulled the mask over his face. The lenses lit up. Green light reflected across the room. Izuku looked at his glider. Then at the weapons. Then at the city outside. He had no intention of becoming a villain. He told himself that repeatedly. He would target criminals. He would expose corrupt heroes. He would prove that quirkless people weren't helpless. That was all. He climbed onto the glider. The turbines activated. He disappeared into the night. Below him, a group of criminals were unloading stolen equipment from a truck. Izuku slowed above them. One criminal looked up. What the hell is that? Izuku raised one hand. A pumpkin-shaped bomb dropped. Boom. Smoke covered the street. The criminals shouted in confusion. Izuku descended through the smoke. His glider hovered above the ground. The criminals stared at the masked figure. Who are you? Izuku's voice came through the mask. Someone who's having a very bad night. One criminal fired his quirk. Izuku moved. The attack missed. He dropped behind the man and struck his shoulder. The criminal collapsed. Another rushed toward him. Izuku activated his glove. Crack. Electricity surged through the criminal's body, knocking him unconscious. The remaining criminals ran. Izuku raised another pumpkin bomb. Don't. The voice whispered. Izuku lowered his hand. They're running. Chase them. Izuku hesitated. Then he looked at the stolen equipment. He couldn't let them escape. The glider accelerated. Above the city, a strange green figure disappeared into the darkness. And for the first time, people began whispering about a new threat in Musudafu. A masked man, a flying machine, green lights in the night, and a laugh that nobody could explain. The morning of the U.A. entrance exam arrived sooner than Izuku expected. He stood outside the enormous gates with his hands inside his pockets, watching hundreds of applicants gather around him. Everyone looked excited. Some were nervous. Izuku was mostly curious. His eyes moved across the crowd, studying their quirks and equipment. Interesting. The voice inside his head responded immediately. Many potential threats. They're students. Some of them could still break your bones. Izuku sighed. You're terrible at encouraging people. He adjusted the small device hidden beneath his sleeve. The goblin glider was stored several blocks away in a concealed container. His costume was hidden beneath his clothes. He hadn't originally planned to use it today. Then he looked toward the massive examination arena. Izuku smiled. Maybe I'll just take a look. The exam began. The gates opened. Students rushed forward. Boom. The first combat robots appeared. Izuku immediately noticed their movement patterns. Predictable. He moved through the streets while keeping his distance. A robot charged toward him. Izuku jumped. The machine's fist smashed into the pavement. Crack. He landed on its shoulder. Too slow. He struck the robot's head. Boom. The machine collapsed. Izuku continued moving. One robot. Then another. Then three more. But his mind wasn't focused entirely on the exam. He could hear the voice again. You're holding back. I'm taking the exam. You could destroy all of them. And get disqualified. Then don't get caught. Izuku frowned. That's not helpful. A sudden explosion shook the arena. Students scattered. Izuku looked toward the source. A massive zero-pointer had appeared. It towered over the buildings, crushing everything beneath its feet. Boom. The ground shook. Students ran. Izuku watched carefully. The machine wasn't worth any points. It existed to create pressure. Then he noticed someone trapped beneath rubble. A girl. She couldn't move. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Damn it. The voice whispered. Leave her. Izuku ignored it. He reached beneath his clothes and activated the hidden transmitter. Somewhere outside the examination area, a storage container opened. The goblin glider launched into the air. Roar. Izuku smiled. Finally. The glider flew toward him. Students looked upward. What is that? Another robot. The glider descended. Izuku jumped onto it. His clothes opened as the green armor underneath activated. The mask covered his face. The lenses glowed. The girl beneath the rubble stared at him. Who are you? Izuku looked at the zero-pointer. Apparently, someone's bad idea of a flying safety inspector. The machine turned toward him. Izuku accelerated. The glider shot forward. Boom. He flew straight past the robot's head. The machine swung. Izuku twisted around the attack. Too predictable. He pulled a pumpkin bomb from his belt. Let's see how you handle this. He threw it. Boom. The explosion tore through the robot's upper joints. The machine staggered. Izuku flew beneath it. And now, he activated both gloves. Electricity surged across his hands. Crack. He struck the exposed control system. The zero-pointer froze. Izuku landed. Then kicked the damaged machine. Boom. The robot collapsed. The trapped girl stared at him. Izuku immediately jumped off the glider. He lifted the rubble away. Can you stand? She nodded. Yes. Good. He helped her away from the wreckage. Then he noticed dozens of students staring. Izuku froze. The voice laughed. You've been noticed. I know. Sirens began sounding around the arena. Izuku looked toward the surveillance cameras. That's bad. Very. He climbed onto the glider. Before leaving, he looked back at the students. One of them shouted, "Who are you?" Izuku paused. He considered answering. Instead, he smiled beneath the mask. Just a guy testing some equipment. The glider shot into the sky. Roar. The remaining applicants watched him disappear. Inside the control room, the exam staff were completely confused. One of them pointed at the screens. Was that an applicant? Another shook his head. I don't know. The principal stared at the footage. Find out. Far above the arena, Izuku removed the mask. He looked down at the U.A. campus. That went well. The voice answered. You destroyed a zero-pointer, saved an applicant, violated several examination regulations, and revealed your glider to the school. Izuku frowned. When you put it like that, it sounds bad. The voice laughed. Izuku accelerated toward the city. Behind him, the U.A. entrance exam had already begun to change. And somewhere inside the school, several teachers were already trying to identify the mysterious green figure who had invaded their examination. The U.A. entrance exam ended with more questions than answers. Izuku had returned home before sunset, but the footage of the mysterious green figure had already spread across several student forums. Nobody knew who the masked rider was. Izuku certainly wasn't planning to tell them. He sat at his desk, reviewing the recording from his glider. Too much exposure, he muttered. The voice in his head answered. You enjoyed it. Maybe a little. You enjoyed watching them panic. Izuku leaned back. I enjoyed proving the glider worked. Same thing. Izuku ignored it. A few days later, the acceptance letters arrived. He had passed. Despite the chaos at the exam, U.A. had awarded him enough rescue points to secure a place. Izuku stared at the letter. I'm actually going to U.A. The voice remained silent for several seconds. Then it said, And Bakugo will be there. Izuku's expression changed. Right. Katsuki Bakugo. The boy who had spent years treating him like he was worthless simply because he was quirkless. Izuku didn't fear him. But he knew Bakugo wouldn't be happy about seeing him at UA. He was right. The first few days at UA were relatively peaceful. Izuku attended classes, studied hero tactics, and kept his equipment hidden. He had already improved the Goblin glider. Faster turbines, better stabilization, smaller weapons. He had even developed a new set of pumpkin bombs that could release adhesive foam instead of explosives. He wanted options. Then came the training exercise. Izuku entered the building with his classmates. Bakugo immediately noticed him. Deku. Izuku turned. Bakugo. Bakugo's expression darkened. What the hell are you doing here? Attending school. You. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Yes, me. Bakugo stepped closer. Don't tell me you actually passed. Apparently the admissions office had a moment of poor judgment. A few students nearby snickered. Bakugo's eye twitched. You think you're funny? Not particularly. You're just easy to annoy. Shut up. Bakugo's palm sparked. Izuku calmly stepped back. Still doing that? Doing what? Trying to solve every problem by exploding it. Bakugo grinned. Maybe I'll start with you. Izuku sighed. Predictable. The training exercise began. Bakugo immediately charged. Boom. Izuku dodged the first explosion. Another followed. Boom. He moved behind a concrete pillar. Bakugo blasted through it. Stopped running. Izuku looked at the destroyed wall. You know, UA probably charges for property damage. I'll pay with your teeth. Bakugo launched himself forward. Izuku jumped backward. His eyes quickly analyzed the angle of Bakugo's explosions. Distance, trajectory, timing, habits. Everything was familiar. Too familiar. The voice whispered, he's angry. Obviously. Make him angrier. Izuku smiled. Gladly. Bakugo fired another blast. Izuku moved aside. Left hand. Boom. Miss. Wide angle. Boom. Miss. Same attack. Boom. Miss. Bakugo's face twisted with rage. Stop dodging. Izuku landed on a railing. Then stop making it so easy. Bakugo roared and fired both hands at once. Boom. The entire corridor filled with smoke. For a moment, Izuku disappeared. Bakugo grinned. Got you. A metallic sound came from above. Click. Bakugo looked up. Izuku stood on the ceiling support, holding a small green device. You really should look around more. Bakugo's eyes widened. The device released a burst of adhesive foam. Splat. Bakugo's arms were stuck to the wall. What the hell is this? Izuku dropped down. Prototype restraint foam. Get me out. No. Bakugo struggled. Izuku crouched in front of him. You're strong, Kachan. But you're terrible at fighting someone who knows how you think. Bakugo glared at him. How do you know that? Izuku smiled. I've been watching you for years. Then he walked away. Bakugo stared after him. For the first time, something bothered him more than losing. Deku hadn't looked afraid, not even once. Later that evening, Izuku returned to his hidden laboratory. He removed his school uniform and opened the equipment cabinet. The green armor waited inside. He touched the goblin mask. I wonder how long I can keep this secret. The voice answered immediately. Not long. Izuku looked at the mask. Why? Because Bakugo is going to look for the goblin. Izuku paused, then smiled. Let him. He picked up the mask. He won't find me. The voice laughed. That's what makes this interesting. Izuku placed the mask over his face. The green lenses illuminated the dark room. Outside, the city lights flickered below. And somewhere in the distance, a police siren began to wail. The next morning, Izuku arrived at UA as if nothing had happened. He sat quietly in class, taking notes while Aizawa explained their upcoming disaster training exercise. Today, you'll be training at the USJ. Izuku continued writing. Inside his head, the goblin voice whispered. Disaster training. Yes. How appropriate. Izuku glanced toward the window. Something about that comment bothered him. The class arrived at the USJ shortly afterward. The enormous facility contained different disaster zones designed to simulate earthquakes, fires, floods, and other emergencies. 13 stood before the students and explained the safety procedures. Izuku listened carefully. Then the air changed. A strange black mist appeared in the center of the facility. Izuku's eyes narrowed. That's not part of the exercise. The mist expanded. Villains began appearing. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. The students froze. Shigaraki stepped forward. Where is All Might? Izuku quietly reached beneath his uniform. His fingers touched the small transmitter hidden there. The goblin voice immediately spoke. They're attacking the school. I know. You should leave. Izuku looked at his classmates. No. Why? Because they're students. The voice laughed. You're starting to sound like a hero. Izuku ignored it. A villain suddenly charged toward the students. Izuku activated his transmitter. Far outside the USJ, a hidden compartment opened. The goblin glider launched. Roar. Izuku's eyes widened. That was fast. He stepped backward. Everyone stayed together. Before anyone could ask what he meant, a green blur crashed through the upper windows. Crack. Glass scattered across the floor. The goblin glider descended. Students stared. The masked figure landed on the platform. Green armor. Metallic claws. Glowing eyes. A twisted grin on the mask. The villain alliance stopped. Shigaraki stared at him. You. The goblin tilted his head. Me. Who are you? The goblin laughed. Someone who really hates crowded rooms. He launched a pumpkin bomb. Boom. Smoke filled the area. Villains began coughing. The students scattered. Izuku accelerated through the smoke. His glider struck one villain and sent him crashing into a wall. Another villain attacked. Izuku twisted sideways. The attack missed. He fired an electric pulse from his glove. Crack. The villain dropped. 3 down. The goblin voice whispered inside his head. More. Izuku smiled beneath the mask. I know. He suddenly heard Uraraka shout. He looked toward her. Several villains were surrounding her. Izuku's expression changed. The glider shot forward. Roar. He swept between the villains, knocking them away with the glider's wings. Uraraka stared at him. Who are you? The goblin turned his masked face toward her. You're extremely inconvenient backup. Then he accelerated again. Shigaraki watched from a distance. He's interfering with us. Kurogiri's mist shifted. Should we eliminate him? Shigaraki scratched his neck. Yes. Several villains rushed toward the goblin. Izuku smiled. Finally. He pulled 3 pumpkin bombs from his belt. Something interesting. He threw them. Boom. 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 Smoke, light, and adhesive foam covered the attackers. The remaining villains hesitated. Izuku landed on his glider. Come on. He raised both hands. Electricity crackled across his gloves. I thought villains were supposed to be dangerous. One villain screamed and charged. Izuku dodged. Another attacked from behind. The glider automatically shifted sideways. Izuku didn't even need to look. The goblin voice laughed. They're terrible. I noticed. Then a massive hand slammed into the ground. Boom. The entire facility shook. Izuku looked toward the source. A gigantic black creature stood beside Shigaraki. Muscular. Silent. Terrifying. Izuku's smile disappeared. That's new. Shigaraki pointed toward him. Nomu. The creature raised its head. Izuku slowly backed away. The goblin voice became quiet. For the first time, it didn't laugh. That thing is different. Izuku tightened his grip. How different. Strong. The Nomu suddenly disappeared. Izuku's eyes widened. What? The creature appeared directly in front of him. Boom. Izuku was launched through several walls. He crashed into the ground. Crack. His armor absorbed most of the impact. He slowly stood. Okay. He wiped dust from his mask. That one hits harder. The Nomu charged again. Izuku jumped onto the glider. The turbines roared. Roar. He shot upward just before the Nomu's fist struck. The punch shattered the floor. Izuku stared down at it. The goblin voice whispered, "Now this is fun." Izuku's smile returned. Yeah. He activated every system on the glider. The green lights brightened. Let's see what you can do. The Nomu's fist had destroyed the floor beneath Izuku. He remained airborne on the goblin glider, staring down at the creature. The machine's turbines whined as he circled above it. Fast, Izuku muttered. The goblin voice answered inside his head. Very fast. Very strong. Probably enhanced durability. Anything else? Yes. The Nomu suddenly jumped. Izuku's eyes widened. It can jump. The creature reached him in midair. Izuku twisted the glider sideways. Boom. The Nomu's fist barely missed his shoulder. Izuku flew through the air and immediately fired 2 pumpkin bombs. Boom. The explosion struck the Nomu's chest. Smoke covered its body. Izuku grinned. Got it. The smoke cleared. The Nomu hadn't moved. Never mind. It launched itself toward him again. Izuku accelerated. Roar. The glider shot across the USJ. The Nomu followed. Izuku weaved between buildings, using the structures to slow the creature down. Come on. The Nomu smashed through a wall. Boom. Izuku turned sharply. You're really committed to property damage. He fired several small projectiles from his gloves. Crack. Electricity struck the Nomu. Nothing. Izuku's expression became serious. That doesn't work either. The goblin voice laughed. Try something bigger. Izuku reached for the largest pumpkin bomb on his belt. You really like explosions. They're effective. Izuku threw the bomb. Boom. The explosion engulfed the Nomu. The shockwave pushed Izuku backward. He stabilized the glider and watched the smoke. For several seconds, there was nothing. Then a shadow emerged. The Nomu stepped out. Izuku stared. That thing is ridiculous. Before he could react, another voice echoed across the facility. Young Midoriya. Izuku looked toward the sound. All Might had arrived. The symbol of peace landed between the students and the villains. Boom. The ground cracked beneath his feet. The students immediately reacted. All Might. Izuku watched him carefully. The goblin voice became quiet. Dangerous. For us. For you. All Might rushed toward the Nomu. Boom. Their fists collided. The shockwave blasted across the facility. Izuku's glider nearly lost balance. What the? All Might struck again. Boom. The Nomu was pushed backward. Izuku watched the exchange. Speed. Strength. Timing. All Might was overpowering the Nomu. But the Nomu wasn't slowing down. Izuku quickly realized something. It's absorbing the attacks. The goblin voice answered. Shock absorption. Izuku's eyes narrowed. That's why the punches aren't doing enough. All Might continued attacking. Boom. 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 The Nomu remained standing. Izuku looked at the surrounding area. The villains were distracted. The students were moving toward safety. He could leave. He should leave. Instead, he turned the glider around. I'm helping. The goblin voice laughed. Of course you are. Izuku accelerated toward the battlefield. All Might noticed the green blur approaching. You. The goblin hovered several meters away. Don't worry, Muscle Man. I'm not here to steal your spotlight. All Might clenched his fists. Who are you? Izuku pointed toward the Nomu. The guy who figured out why you're not winning. All Might paused. Izuku continued. It absorbs shock. Stop punching it normally. All Might stared. How do you know that? I have eyes. The Nomu suddenly charged. Izuku moved left. All Might reacted instantly. The Nomu's fist missed. Izuku fired a pumpkin bomb beneath its feet. Boom. The explosion disrupted its balance. All Might seized the opening. He grabbed the Nomu and launched it upward. Izuku followed from behind. Keep it airborne. All Might looked back. What are you planning? Something stupid. That's not reassuring. Izuku grinned beneath his mask. He activated every turbine. The glider accelerated. Roar. He flew around the Nomu repeatedly, creating a powerful vortex. The creature struggled to maintain balance. All Might understood immediately. I see. He grabbed the Nomu. Now, Izuku pulled out a larger bomb. Good night. Boom. The explosion sent the Nomu crashing downward. All Might followed. Smash. Boom. The impact shook the entire USJ. Dust filled the area. Izuku landed on the glider. He looked toward the smoke. Did we get it? The goblin voice answered. No. The dust cleared. The Nomu was still standing. Izuku sighed. Of course. Then another figure appeared behind him. Shigaraki. You've ruined everything. Izuku slowly turned. You kidnapped a school full of teenagers and somehow I'm the problem. Shigaraki's fingers twitched. Izuku's glider immediately rose. Yeah. Not letting you touch me. Shigaraki lunged. Izuku accelerated away. Roar. He looked back at the battlefield. All Might was still fighting. The students were escaping. The villains were losing control of the situation. Izuku smiled. Looks like the heroes have this. The goblin voice whispered. Then why are you staying? Izuku looked at the Nomu. Because I'm curious. He turned the glider around. And because I want to see how hard the thing can be hit. The green glider shot back toward the battle. Roar. And somewhere beneath the goblin mask, Izuku's grin grew wider. The USJ incident ended in chaos. The villains had retreated. The students had been evacuated. And the mysterious Green Rider had disappeared before the pro-heroes could catch him. By the time Izuku returned home, the sun was already setting. He landed the goblin glider inside his hidden workshop and removed his mask. His hair was damp with sweat. That Nomu was insane. The voice inside his head chuckled. You enjoyed fighting it. I enjoyed surviving it. Same thing. Izuku rolled his eyes. He removed his armor and placed it on the workbench. There were several dents across the chest plate. He examined them carefully. I need stronger armor. And stronger weapons. I know. Izuku turned toward the mirror. His reflection stared back at him. For a moment, everything looked normal. Then the reflection smiled. Izuku didn't. You're getting louder. The goblin reflection tilted its head. Because you're listening more. I don't want to listen. Yet you keep putting on the mask. Izuku looked toward the green helmet sitting on the table. It's equipment. It's freedom. Izuku frowned. Don't start. The reflection's smile widened. You like being the goblin. Izuku stepped closer to the mirror. I use the suit because it lets me do things I can't do as Izuku. Exactly. The reflection leaned closer. As Izuku Midoriya, you're just the quirkless student. Izuku's fists tightened. I'm not ashamed of being quirkless. Then why hide behind the mask? Izuku had no answer. The reflection laughed. That's what I thought. The mirror returned to normal. Izuku stood silently for several seconds. Then he looked at his equipment. The goblin formula had made him stronger. The glider made him faster. The armor made him dangerous. But the voice was becoming harder to control. He opened his notebook and began writing. Side effects. Increased aggression, auditory hallucinations, altered emotional response. He stopped. Then added another sentence. Possible dissociative personality development. The pen suddenly snapped in his hand. Crack. Izuku stared at it. His breathing became heavier. Calm down. The voice whispered. Why? Because I'm telling you to. You don't control me. Then prove it. Izuku closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the laboratory was quiet. The next morning, Izuku returned to UA. The incident at USJ dominated every conversation. Students discussed the villains. They talked about All Might. And they talked about the mysterious green villain who had attacked both sides. Bakugo was particularly irritated. That bastard. Izuku glanced at him. You mean the flying guy? Who else? Bakugo clenched his fist. He showed up, attacked everyone, and disappeared. Izuku shrugged. Efficient. Bakugo glared at him. Why are you defending him? I'm not. Izuku continued writing. I'm just saying he didn't kill anyone. Bakugo stared at him. You sound like you know him. Izuku paused. Maybe I do. Bakugo leaned closer. What? Izuku smiled. Nothing. Aizawa entered the classroom. The room immediately became quiet. The USJ incident has changed things. He placed several reports on his desk. The police are investigating the green villain. Izuku remained expressionless. Aizawa continued. He's considered extremely dangerous. Izuku looked toward the window. Inside his mind, the goblin voice whispered. They're looking for us. Izuku answered silently. I know. Good. Stay quiet. Make me. Izuku's jaw tightened. That night, Izuku stood on the roof of a building. The goblin mask covered his face. The city stretched beneath him. Sirens echoed in the distance. He activated the glider. Roar. The machine lifted into the air. The goblin laughed. Izuku immediately grabbed the controls. Stop. The laughter continued. Stop. The voice became louder. Let them fear us. Izuku flew higher. We're not monsters. Then stop acting like one. Izuku looked down at the city. He saw a group of criminals attacking a convenience store. His eyes narrowed. Fine. He accelerated. Roar. The goblin voice laughed. And this time, Izuku didn't know whether the sound came from inside his head or from behind the mask. The weeks following the USJ incident passed under heavy security. UA. Increased patrols around the campus, teachers became more cautious, and the students were constantly reminded not to wander outside without permission. Izuku didn't complain. He simply continued studying. During the day, he was an ordinary student. At night, the goblin came out. The glider had become faster. The armor was lighter, and the pumpkin bombs had received several new modifications. But Izuku's biggest problem wasn't his equipment. It was the voice. You've been quiet lately. Izuku sat in his laboratory, adjusting a circuit. I'm thinking about the sports festival. Izuku stopped. How did you know? The reflection in the monitor smiled. Because everyone is talking about it. Izuku leaned back. The UA sports festival was only a few days away. Millions of people would be watching. Heroes, media, companies, villains, everyone. The goblin voice whispered. Perfect. Izuku frowned. Don't. Why not? Because I know what you're thinking. Do you? Izuku looked at the green mask. You're thinking about making an entrance. The voice laughed. Perhaps. Izuku shook his head. No. The day of the festival arrived. The stadium was packed. Cameras covered almost every corner. The students entered the arena while thousands of spectators cheered. Izuku walked among his classmates, keeping his expression calm. Bakugo was several steps ahead. Todoroki stood nearby. Uraraka looked excited. Izuku glanced toward the cameras. This is a lot of attention. The voice whispered. You could have all of it. I don't want it. Liar. Izuku ignored the voice. The opening ceremony continued. Then the screen suddenly flickered. The broadcast cut out. Static filled the stadium. Everyone looked upward. The main screen turned black. Then a green symbol appeared. A goblin face. The crowd fell silent. Izuku's eyes widened. That's not me. The voice inside his head laughed. Not yet. A distorted laugh echoed through the speakers. Then a familiar green glider appeared on the screen. Izuku stared. Someone had hacked the broadcast. Who is that? One student asked. Aizawa immediately looked toward the control room. Security. The screen changed. A live image of the stadium appeared. Then a masked figure appeared on the giant screen. Green armor. Glowing eyes. A twisted grin. The Green Goblin. The crowd erupted in panic. Izuku stared at the screen. That's my design. The goblin voice whispered. Someone copied us. The figure on the screen laughed. Heroes of U.A. The voice was distorted. Today, everyone gets to see what your precious hero society really looks like. Smoke bombs suddenly detonated around the stadium. Boom. Green smoke spread through the lower sections. Students immediately moved to protect civilians. Aizawa shouted orders. Stay together. Izuku looked at the smoke. His mind immediately started calculating. Non-toxic. The goblin voice answered. Mostly. It's designed to cause confusion. Izuku narrowed his eyes. Then whoever made this knows our technology. Another explosion shook the stadium. Boom. A mechanical glider emerged from beneath the arena. It wasn't his. It was larger, more heavily armed, and covered in crude green armor. The figure riding it laughed through the speakers. You wanted a spectacle. The goblin voice inside Izuku's head whispered. Give them one. Izuku clenched his fists. I'm not helping that guy. Why? Because he's hurting civilians. The voice went silent. Then it laughed softly. Finally, Izuku looked toward the exits. Students were evacuating civilians. Heroes were moving toward the intruder. He couldn't expose himself. Not here. Not in front of everyone. But the mechanical glider suddenly fired several small projectiles toward the crowd. Izuku reacted instantly. He reached beneath his uniform. A tiny device activated. A green barrier expanded in front of the nearest spectators. Crack. The projectiles struck the barrier and fell harmlessly. The students stared. Midoriya. Izuku quickly lowered his hand. Keep moving. The fake goblin turned toward him. Its glowing lenses focused on Izuku. For a moment, Izuku felt as if it was staring directly through him. Then the figure laughed. Interesting. Izuku's blood ran cold. The goblin voice whispered inside his head. It knows. Knows what? Us. The fake goblin suddenly turned away. Its glider shot toward the ceiling. Roar. The broadcast returned to normal. The smoke began clearing. The stadium was left in chaos. Izuku stared at the empty air above him. Someone had copied his identity. Someone had copied his technology. And, worse than that, someone had discovered how effective the goblin persona could be. Inside his head, the voice whispered one final sentence. We have competition. Izuku looked toward the exit. Then we'll find out who they are. The voice laughed. This time, Izuku didn't laugh with it. The sports festival ended under tighter security than anyone had expected. The fake green goblin had disappeared before the pro heroes could catch him. U.A. Officials spent days investigating the hacked broadcast, but the culprit left almost no trace. Izuku wasn't happy about it. He sat in his laboratory that evening, staring at the stolen footage on his monitor. The fake goblin had copied his mask, his glider, even the green smoke. Whoever this is has access to serious technology, Izuku muttered. The voice inside his head answered. Or someone is helping him. Izuku paused. That's worse. He rewound the footage. Again. And again. Then he noticed something. The fake goblin's glider had different engines. The weapons were crude copies. The movement patterns were also wrong. Izuku leaned closer. He copied the appearance, but not the design. Meaning, he doesn't understand the technology. The voice laughed. Then he's an amateur. An amateur with enough resources to hack you. Izuku closed the laptop. I need to find him. Before he could continue, Every monitor in the laboratory suddenly flickered. Static filled the screens. Izuku immediately reached for his gloves. What now? The voice became silent. A distorted image appeared. A man wearing a strange mask sat in a dark room. Izuku stared at the screen. The man spoke calmly. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku froze. How does he know my name? The voice inside his head whispered. Because someone told him. The masked man continued. Your little performance at the sports festival was impressive. Izuku frowned. I wasn't the one who did that. I know. The man smiled. That's precisely why I'm interested. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Who are you? The screen went black. A second later, a new voice came through the speakers. Someone who understands the value of power. Izuku immediately recognized the voice from reports. All for one. His expression hardened. You've been watching me. For some time. Why? Because you accomplished something remarkable. Izuku remained silent. You were born without a quirk. All for one continued. Yet you created a formula that enhanced your physical abilities and developed technology capable of challenging professional heroes. Izuku clenched his fist. I'm not interested in joining the League of Villains. A quiet laugh came through the speakers. I didn't ask you to join them. Then what do you want? Your research. Izuku stared at the screen. No, you haven't heard my offer. I don't need to. All for one paused. You should be careful, young man. Izuku smiled faintly. That's rich coming from a guy hiding behind a screen. The voice inside his head laughed. All for one remained silent for several seconds. Then he chuckled. You have quite a personality. I've been told. Give me your formula and your technology. In exchange, I can provide resources you could never obtain alone. Izuku shook his head. Still no. Why? Because I don't trust you. An understandable concern. The screen suddenly displayed several images. Blueprints. Chemical formulas. Equipment. Even advanced support technology. Izuku's eyes widened despite himself. Where did you get those? From people who no longer need them. The voice became softer. Imagine what you could build with unlimited resources. Izuku stared at the images. The goblin voice whispered inside his head. Take the deal. Izuku's expression hardened. No. Why? Because he wants something from us. Everyone wants something. And that's exactly the problem. The screens went dark. All for one spoke one final time. You will contact me when you change your mind. The connection ended. Izuku stood alone in the laboratory. The silence felt heavier than before. Then the goblin voice spoke. You should have accepted. Izuku turned toward the mirror. His reflection wore the goblin mask. We could have taken everything. Izuku shook his head. We don't work for him. The reflection smiled. I never said we would. Izuku frowned. Then what are you saying? We could use him. Izuku stared at his reflection. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Izuku slowly smiled. That's actually not a terrible idea. The reflection laughed. Outside the laboratory, a green light illuminated the dark street. And far away, All for One sat quietly in his hideout. He had expected Izuku to refuse. In fact, that was exactly what interested him. The boy wasn't obedient. He wasn't desperate enough to be controlled. And unlike most young villains, he had built his power with his own hands. All for One smiled beneath his mask. Interesting. His attention shifted to the screen showing a photograph of the Green Goblin. Very interesting. The meeting with All for One continued to occupy Izuku's thoughts. He hadn't accepted the offer. He hadn't rejected the possibility of using All for One's resources either. For now, he decided to focus on something more immediate. The hero killer. Reports of Stain had been appearing across the news for weeks. Several pro-heroes had been attacked, and Hosu City had become increasingly tense. Izuku watched the reports from his laboratory. Another one. The goblin voice chuckled. He's certainly busy. He's targeting heroes. So are we. Izuku frowned. Not the same way. Are you sure? Izuku turned off the screen. I don't kill people. The voice didn't answer. Several days later, Izuku arrived in Hosu with his classmates for their internships. He had chosen a small hero agency that focused on rescue and urban patrols. During the day, everything seemed normal. Until the emergency alerts started. Sirens echoed through the streets. Izuku looked toward the nearest monitor. Hero killer Stain confirmed. His expression changed. The goblin voice immediately whispered. Finally, Izuku looked toward the window. Stay quiet. You know you want to see him. Izuku grabbed his jacket. I want to know what he's capable of. That's better. Night had fallen over Hosu. Izuku moved across the rooftops in his goblin armor. The glider hovered beneath him. He followed several traces of destruction through the city. Then he heard a voice. You're not a true hero. Izuku stopped. Below him, a bloodied pro-hero lay against a wall. Stain stood several meters away, holding his sword. Then another figure entered the alley. Tenya Iida. Izuku's eyes widened. Iida. Stain turned. Another false hero. Iida charged. Izuku immediately descended. Roar. The glider swept between them. Stain jumped backward. Another villain. Izuku landed. Depends who you ask. Stain raised his sword. You wear a mask and attack people from the sky. Izuku tilted his head. You stab heroes. Stain's eyes narrowed. I eliminate those who are unworthy. So you're a critic with a sword. Stain stared at him. Izuku shrugged. That's what this sounds like. Iida looked between them. Midoriya. Izuku froze. You weren't supposed to see me. Stain's eyes widened slightly. Midoriya. Izuku sighed. Great. The goblin voice laughed. This is going well. Stain suddenly lunged. Izuku moved aside. Slash. His armor was cut across the shoulder. Okay. Izuku's expression hardened. That was rude. Stain attacked again. Izuku accelerated upward. Roar. Stain followed by jumping between the buildings. Izuku fired a pumpkin bomb. Boom. Stain disappeared into the smoke. Izuku scanned the alley. Nothing. Then Stain appeared behind him. Izuku barely turned in time. Crack. The blade struck his armor. He was thrown against a wall. Stain landed. Your equipment makes you strong. Izuku slowly stood. Thanks. But strength without conviction is meaningless. Izuku stared at him. You really like speeches. Stain's expression darkened. You mock everything. Only the parts that deserve it. Stain charged. Izuku activated both gloves. Crack. Electricity surged through the alley. Stain blocked the attack with his sword. Izuku immediately fired a second device. A burst of adhesive foam covered the blade. Stain pulled it free. Izuku smiled. You really should stop bringing a sword to a technology fight. Stain threw a knife. Izuku ducked. The blade struck the wall behind him. Then Stain rushed forward again. Iida attempted to intercept him. Stay back. Stain struck Iida across the chest. Iida fell. Izuku's expression changed. Iida. He launched himself forward. Roar. The glider slammed into Stain. Boom. Stain crashed through a wall. Izuku landed beside Iida. You okay? Iida struggled to move. I can't. Izuku looked toward Stain. The goblin voice whispered. Finish him. Izuku clenched his fist. No. Why? Because I'm not him. Stain emerged from the rubble. Blood covered one side of his face. He smiled. Then prove it. Izuku stared at him. For a moment, the goblin voice became almost silent. Then Izuku raised his gloves. Fine. Electricity crackled. I'll prove it. He charged. Roar. The battle continued through the narrow streets of Hosu. Stain was fast. Izuku was faster. Stain was experienced. Izuku adapted. Every time Stain changed his attack pattern, Izuku analyzed it. Every time Stain tried to close the distance, the glider forced him back. Finally, Izuku threw a smoke bomb directly beneath Stain. Boom! Stain lost sight of his opponents. Iida struck from one side. Izuku attacked from the other. Stain was knocked to the ground. He tried to rise. Izuku pointed his electric glove toward him. "Stay down." Stain glared. "You are still pretending." Izuku frowned. "Pretending what? That you are different." Izuku stared at him. The words lingered. Then he lowered his hand. "Maybe." He turned away. "But I'm still choosing what I do." Sirens approached in the distance. Izuku looked toward the rooftops. "We're leaving." Iida stared at him. "Midoriya. Wait." Izuku stepped onto the glider. "Forget you saw me." Roar. The glider launched into the night. Behind him, Stain remained conscious, staring after the green figure. And inside Izuku's mind, the goblin voice whispered softly. "He almost understood us." Izuku looked toward the city lights. "Then we'll make sure nobody does." The aftermath of the Hosu incident spread quickly. Stain had been captured. The injured heroes were recovering. And several witnesses had reported seeing the Green Goblin fighting alongside the students. Izuku watched the news from his laboratory. "They're calling him a villain again." The goblin voice laughed. "Accurate. I helped Iida, and attacked Stain. He was trying to kill us. So were the villains at USJ." Izuku looked at the green armor hanging beside him. "That's different." "How?" Izuku didn't answer. Instead, he opened a new equipment case. Inside were several small metallic objects shaped like bats. The goblin voice immediately became interested. "What are those?" "Razor bats." Izuku picked one up. Thin blades extended from its wings. "They're remote-controlled drones." He placed it on the workbench. "They can track targets, cut cables, disable equipment, or deliver small electrical charges." "Dangerous. Controlled. For now." Izuku sighed. "You really need new material." He opened another case. Inside were upgraded gauntlets. Several small coils surrounded the palms. "These can release a stronger electrical discharge." The goblin voice laughed. "How strong?" "Strong enough to disable a villain. Or a hero." Izuku looked at the gauntlets. "Only if necessary." He moved to the final container. A series of small green capsules rested inside. "What's that?" "Hallucinogenic smoke." The voice became silent. Izuku immediately shook his head. "Non-lethal. Still, I'm not using it unless someone's about to hurt civilians." He closed the container. The laboratory fell silent. Then the computer beeped. Izuku looked at the screen. A new alert had appeared. Several pro-heroes were investigating the Green Goblin's activities. One name caught his attention. Eraserhead. Izuku leaned closer. "He's getting involved." The goblin voice chuckled. "The tired-looking teacher. He's smart. Then we should test him." Izuku frowned. "We should avoid him." "Coward." Izuku looked toward the mirror. His reflection wore the goblin mask. "You want me to fight everyone." "Not everyone." The reflection smiled. "Only the ones who think they can stop us." Izuku clenched his fists. "We're not going after heroes. Then they'll come after us." That night, Izuku tested the new equipment. The goblin glider flew between buildings while several razor bats followed behind. He moved his fingers. The drones immediately changed formation. Left, right, up, down. Perfect synchronization. Izuku smiled. Much better. He activated another control. The razor bats split apart. One flew toward a streetlight. Slash. The cable was cut. Another struck a metal sign. Crack. The sign fell harmlessly into an empty alley. Good. The goblin voice laughed. Now imagine what they could do to someone. Izuku ignored it. He continued flying. Then his danger sensors activated. Someone was following him. Izuku turned sharply. Nothing. He checked the rooftops. Still nothing. You're not alone. I know. He slowed the glider. A capture weapon suddenly shot from the darkness. Izuku twisted. The weapon missed by centimeters. He recognized it immediately. Aizawa. A racer head stepped onto the rooftop. Midoriya. Izuku froze. The name hit him harder than the attack. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Take off the mask. Izuku remained silent. The goblin voice whispered. Run. Izuku accelerated. Roar. Aizawa's capture weapon followed. Izuku flew between buildings. The weapon wrapped around the glider's rear section. The machine jerked. Izuku nearly fell. Seriously. He activated the electric system. Crack. The capture weapon released. Izuku escaped into the darkness. Aizawa watched him disappear. Fast. He looked down at the small piece of green armor left behind. And familiar. Izuku returned to his laboratory several minutes later. He removed his mask and stared at the damage. Aizawa had almost caught him. The goblin voice spoke quietly. He knows. Not everything. Enough. Izuku looked at the broken piece of armor. Then at the new weapons. Then at his reflection. I need better equipment. The reflection smiled. Now you're thinking like me. Izuku picked up his notebook. He wrote a new heading. Goblin Arsenal. Phase 2. Beneath it, he began listing improvements. Stronger armor. Better stealth. More advanced drones. Faster glider. And a countermeasure specifically designed for capture weapons. The goblin voice laughed. Izuku continued writing. He wasn't going to let the heroes catch him. Not yet. The next few days were unusually quiet. Izuku spent most of his time improving the goblin armor and avoiding unnecessary patrols. After his encounter with Aizawa, he had become more careful. The capture weapon had nearly exposed him. He couldn't allow that to happen again. You've been hiding. The goblin voice spoke from inside his head. Izuku tightened a screw on his gauntlet. I'm being careful. Same thing. No. Izuku placed the upgraded gauntlet on the table. If they find out who I am, everything falls apart. The voice laughed. Maybe that's the fun part. Izuku ignored it. Then his phone vibrated. A message from you. There was an emergency. A group of villains had been spotted near a training facility. Izuku stared at the message. Seriously. The goblin voice whispered. Put on the mask. The fight began shortly after sunset. Aizawa arrived first. Bakugo was with him. The two had been tracking the Green Goblin for several weeks. Neither of them knew exactly where he would appear. Then a green light appeared above the buildings. Roar. Bakugo looked up. There. The goblin glider descended. Izuku immediately recognized them. Aizawa. Then he noticed Bakugo. Great. The goblin voice laughed. This will be fun. Bakugo launched himself upward. Boom. Izuku twisted the glider sideways. The explosion missed. Still predictable. Bakugo growled. Shut up. He attacked again. Boom. Izuku flew between two buildings. Aizawa's capture weapon followed. Izuku activated his new countermeasure. The glider released several small drones. The razor bats surrounded the capture weapon. Slash. The weapon was forced away. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. New equipment. Izuku grinned. You noticed. Bakugo appeared above him. Got you. Izuku barely moved. Bakugo's explosion struck the glider. Boom. The machine spun out of control. Izuku grabbed the side rail. That's going to cost me. He regained control. Then Bakugo attacked again. Izuku raised his gauntlet. Crack. The electric pulse forced Bakugo backward. He landed hard on a rooftop. Damn you. Izuku hovered above him. You really need to work on your temper. Bakugo looked up. I know that voice. Izuku froze. The goblin voice whispered. Leave. Bakugo stared at the mask. That voice. He suddenly rushed forward. Izuku tried to escape. Aizawa's capture weapon wrapped around the glider. The machine stopped. Damn it. Aizawa pulled. Izuku activated the turbines. The glider strained. Bakugo jumped. His hand grabbed the goblin's shoulder. Izuku struck him away. But Bakugo held on. The two crashed onto the rooftop. Boom. Bakugo immediately grabbed the mask. Take it off. Izuku struggled. Get off me. The words came out naturally. Bakugo froze. His eyes widened. That voice. He ripped at the mask. Crack. The outer shell broke. Izuku's face was exposed. Both of them froze. Bakugo stared. Green eyes. Messy dark hair. Freckles. The face he had known since childhood. Deku. Izuku said nothing. Aizawa's eyes widened. Midoriya. The goblin voice went completely silent. Bakugo slowly stepped backward. You're. His expression changed from shock to anger. You're the goblin. Izuku touched the damaged mask. Part of his face was still covered by the broken armor. He couldn't think of anything to say. Bakugo's hands began trembling. All this time, Izuku finally looked at him. Don't. You've been doing this. Bakugo. Listen. You attacked me. I didn't know it was you. You attacked heroes. Izuku's jaw tightened. I didn't kill anyone. That's not the point. Aizawa raised his capture weapon. Midoriya. Take off the rest of the armor. Izuku looked at him. Then at Bakugo. Then at the glider. He knew he couldn't fight both of them without causing serious injuries. The goblin voice finally returned. Destroy them. Izuku clenched his fist. No. They know. I said no. Bakugo stared at him. Who are you talking to? Izuku didn't answer. Aizawa stepped closer. Midoriya. Izuku activated the glider. The turbines roared. Roar. Aizawa's capture weapon shot forward. Izuku released a smoke bomb. Boom. Green smoke covered the rooftop. Don't move. Aizawa shouted. A powerful gust cleared part of the smoke. But the glider was already rising. Bakugo looked upward. Deku. Izuku stopped for half a second. He looked down. Bakugo was standing beneath him. For once, there was no anger in his expression. Only disbelief. Izuku turned away. I'm sorry. Then he accelerated into the night. Roar. Bakugo remained frozen. Aizawa stared at the empty sky. Midoriya. The identity of the Green Goblin was no longer a mystery. And for Bakugo, the discovery was far more disturbing than any villain attack he had ever experienced. Bakugo didn't sleep that night. The image of the broken green mask kept returning to his mind. Beneath it had been Izuku. Deku. The same boy he had known since childhood. The same boy he had called useless. The same boy he had pushed away whenever he tried to follow him. And now that boy had become the Green Goblin. Bakugo sat alone in his room, staring at his hands. Damn it. His palms sparked. Crack. He clenched his fists. Why? He remembered the rooftop. Izuku hadn't attacked him after his identity was exposed. He could have. The goblin had escaped from pro heroes before. He had fought villains. He had survived the USJ. Yet when Bakugo discovered his identity, Izuku had simply said, I'm sorry. Bakugo's jaw tightened. Why did you say that? He already knew the answer. And he hated it. The next morning, Bakugo arrived at UA without saying a word. The classroom was unusually quiet. Everyone had heard something had happened. Aizawa entered carrying several documents. Midoriya won't be attending classes today. Bakugo looked up. Where is he? Unknown. You know where he is. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. We're investigating. Bakugo slammed his hand against the desk. Boom. Several students jumped. He's not a villain. Aizawa stared at him. He has attacked heroes. But he hasn't killed anyone. That doesn't make what he's doing acceptable. Bakugo went silent. He knew that. But something about the situation bothered him. The Green Goblin wasn't some random criminal. It was Izuku. And suddenly Bakugo remembered every time he had laughed at him. Every time he had told him to give up. Every time he had treated his lack of a quirk like a weakness. His expression darkened. I helped make this. Aizawa heard him. What? Bakugo looked down. Nothing. That evening, Bakugo left the school grounds alone. He didn't know where he was going. He simply walked. Eventually, he reached an abandoned building. He remembered this place. Years ago, he and Izuku had often passed through the area. Bakugo stared at the empty warehouse. Deku. A voice came from the darkness. Looking for someone. Bakugo spun around. His palms immediately sparked. Crack. A green glider descended from the roof. Izuku stood on it. His mask was repaired, but one side remained visibly damaged. Bakugo stared at him. Take that thing off. Izuku didn't move. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. Izuku looked away. Probably. Bakugo stepped closer. Why? Izuku remained silent. Why are you doing this? The goblin voice whispered inside Izuku's head. Don't answer. Izuku ignored it. Because I got tired. Bakugo frowned. Tired of what? Being told I couldn't do anything. Izuku looked directly at him. Every time someone saw me, they saw a quirkless kid. Bakugo's expression tightened. I never. You did. Bakugo stopped. Izuku continued. You told me to give up. Silence. You told me I should jump. Bakugo's eyes widened. He remembered. He had said it. Years ago. Izuku looked at him through the green lenses. You were right about one thing. Bakugo clenched his fists. What? I wasn't going to become a hero the way everyone expected. Bakugo looked at the glider. So you became this. Izuku lowered his head. I didn't plan to. The goblin voice whispered. We chose it. Izuku's hands tightened around the controls. The formula changed me. Bakugo stared. Then stop using it. Izuku laughed bitterly. You think it's that easy? Yes. It's not. Then I'll make it easy. Bakugo stepped forward. I'll help you. Izuku froze. The goblin voice immediately shouted inside his head. No. Bakugo continued. I don't care what you've done. Izuku looked at him. You should. Maybe. Bakugo's expression hardened. But I'm not letting you disappear. Izuku didn't respond. Bakugo looked at the broken part of his mask. You always wanted to save people. Izuku's eyes widened slightly. Even when you were quirkless. Bakugo swallowed. So stop pretending you're someone else. The goblin voice became louder. Leave. Izuku's breathing became heavier. Leave. Bakugo stepped closer. Deku. Izuku suddenly raised his gauntlet. Crack. Electricity surged across his palm. Bakugo didn't move. Izuku stared at him. His hand trembled. I said leave. Bakugo remained there. Then do it. Izuku couldn't. His hand slowly lowered. The goblin voice screamed inside his head. Weak. Izuku closed his eyes. Shut up. Bakugo heard him. Who are you talking to? Izuku opened his eyes. For a moment, his expression looked frightened. Then the goblin mask's lenses brightened. The glider activated. Roar. Izuku flew upward. Bakugo shouted after him. Deku. Izuku didn't turn around. But before disappearing into the clouds, he spoke quietly. Don't follow me, Kachan. Bakugo watched the green light vanish. His fists tightened. I'm going to anyway. Far above the city, Izuku flew alone. Inside his mind, the goblin laughed. He wants to save you. Izuku stared ahead. He's too late. Are you sure? Izuku didn't answer. For the first time since creating the goblin formula, he wasn't certain which voice was telling the truth. The night after Bakugo confronted him, Izuku barely slept. He remained inside the laboratory, sitting beside the goblin glider while staring at the damaged mask. Bakugo's words kept returning. Stop pretending you're someone else. Izuku picked up a screwdriver. He doesn't understand. The goblin voice answered. He understands more than you think. Izuku frowned. You've been unusually quiet. I'm listening. To what? You. Izuku looked toward the mirror. His reflection smiled. You're starting to doubt us. Izuku looked away. Before he could respond, every screen in the laboratory suddenly lit up. An emergency broadcast appeared. Kamino Ward. All Might. All for One. The battle had begun. Izuku stared at the screen. The goblin voice whispered. There. Izuku immediately stood. No. Yes. This isn't our fight. All for One is there. Izuku froze. He remembered the offer. The resources. The technology. The promise of power. Izuku grabbed his mask. I'm going. Kamino Ward was already in chaos. Buildings had been damaged. Villains and pro-heroes were fighting across the streets. At the center of everything stood All Might and All for One. Boom. Their attacks collided. Izuku watched from high above on his glider. This is insane. The goblin voice laughed. Beautiful. Izuku frowned. That's not beautiful. Look closer. Izuku did. All for One was using multiple quirks simultaneously. Air cannons. Impact reinforcement. Tendril-like attacks. All Might was struggling to keep up. Then Izuku noticed something else. Bakugo. He was nearby. Izuku's eyes widened. Why is he here? The goblin voice answered. Because he always runs toward danger. Izuku sighed. Of course. Bakugo suddenly came under attack. Izuku didn't hesitate. He accelerated. Roar. A projectile flew toward Bakugo. Izuku fired a pumpkin bomb. Boom. The projectile was destroyed. Bakugo looked upward. The green glider descended. Izuku grabbed Bakugo by the arm and pulled him away from the battlefield. You really need to stop getting into situations like this. Bakugo stared at him. What are you doing here? Rescuing you. I didn't ask. You're welcome. Bakugo's expression twisted. Before he could respond, another explosion rocked the street. Boom. Izuku looked toward the main battlefield. All Might had been knocked backward. All for One stood above him. Izuku's expression hardened. He's losing. The goblin voice whispered. Then interfere. Izuku looked at his equipment. He had several pumpkin bombs, razor bats, electric gauntlets, but none of them could seriously hurt All for One. Still, they could distract him. Izuku accelerated toward the battlefield. Roar. All for One noticed the green glider approaching. His attention shifted. The young inventor. Izuku stopped in midair. You remember me? Of course. All for One smiled beneath his mask. Have you reconsidered my offer? Izuku raised a gauntlet. Crack. Still no. He fired. All for One blocked the electrical blast with a force field. Stubborn. Izuku threw 3 pumpkin bombs. Boom. 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 Smoke covered the street. All for One remained untouched. You can't defeat me with toys. Izuku smiled. I know. The smoke suddenly cleared. Razor bats surrounded All for One. Slash. They attacked his weapons and equipment rather than his body. All for One destroyed them with a single blast. Izuku immediately changed direction. That worked better than expected. The goblin voice laughed. Again. Izuku fired another wave. All for One destroyed them. Then he raised one hand. A massive shockwave struck Izuku. Boom. The glider spun violently. Izuku crashed into a building. Crack. He fell through a window and landed inside an apartment. He groaned. Okay. He slowly stood. That hurt. The goblin voice laughed. Now you understand the difference. Izuku looked toward the battlefield. All Might was still fighting. Bakugo was being evacuated. Heroes were surrounding the area. Izuku could leave. He should leave. Then he saw All for One raise his hand toward All Might. Izuku's eyes widened. No. He launched himself from the building. Roar. He flew directly between them. All for One's attack struck the glider. Boom. Izuku was thrown sideways. All Might caught him before he hit the ground. Young man. Izuku looked up. Hi. All Might stared at the goblin mask. You again. Izuku pushed himself away. Don't get sentimental. All Might looked toward the battlefield. You should leave. Working on it. All for One laughed. You continue to surprise me. Izuku looked at him. I try. All for One raised his hand. Perhaps you should reconsider my offer. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Maybe. All Might looked at him in surprise. Izuku continued. But not today. He activated every remaining turbine. Roar. The glider shot upward. All for One watched him disappear. All Might turned back toward his enemy. Izuku circled high above Kamino. The battle below became louder. Boom. Then came All Might's final attack. The impact shook the entire city. Izuku stared at the massive explosion in silence. The goblin voice whispered. The symbol won. Izuku looked toward the smoke. Barely. And now. Izuku looked down at the ruined streets. Heroes were evacuating civilians. Villains were being arrested. Bakugo was safe. He slowly turned the glider away. Now we disappear. The goblin voice laughed. Until next time. Izuku flew into the darkness. Behind him, Kamino Ward burned beneath the night sky. And somewhere among the countless recordings of the battle, one image remained clear. The Green Goblin had stood between All for One and his target. Not as a hero, not as an ally, but as something neither side could control. The battle in Kamino Ward had changed everything. All for One had been defeated. All Might had won, but the Green Goblin had escaped. For the heroes, that created a new problem. Izuku Midoriya was still missing. Bakugo knew exactly where to look. The abandoned laboratory beneath an old warehouse had already been searched twice, but Bakugo noticed something strange in the floor. A faint green stain. He crouched down. He was here. Aizawa looked at the mark. You're sure? Yeah. Bakugo clenched his fist. He always leaves traces when he's working on something. Aizawa studied him. You know him well. Bakugo looked away. Better than most. Inside the U.A. medical department, several researchers examined samples taken from the damaged goblin armor. The results were disturbing. The goblin formula wasn't simply an enhancement drug. It was constantly changing. The compound is adapting to his body, one researcher explained. Bakugo frowned. So what? If we simply remove the formula, his body may collapse. Silence filled the room. Bakugo stared at the table. Then make something that doesn't remove it. The researchers looked at him. What? Make something that stops it from controlling him. Aizawa crossed his arms. An antidote. Exactly. One of the researchers shook his head. We don't have enough information. Bakugo slammed his hand onto the table. Boom. Then get more. The search continued for days. Bakugo studied every encounter involving the Green Goblin. The first appearance. The USJ incident. The sports festival attack. The battle against Stain. The encounter with Aizawa. Kamino. He noticed something. Izuku's attacks were always carefully calculated. He rarely used lethal force. Even when he had the opportunity. Bakugo stared at the reports. He's still in there. Aizawa looked at him. You believe that? I know that. Deep beneath the city, Izuku worked alone. His laboratory had become larger. More machines lined the walls. Several unfinished gliders hung from the ceiling. His new armor rested on a table. Stronger, faster, more heavily protected. The goblin voice spoke. They're coming. Izuku stopped working. Who? Heroes. He looked at the security monitors. Nothing appeared. You're guessing. No. A small smile appeared beneath his mask. I can hear them. Izuku remained silent. Then one of the monitors flickered. Aizawa appeared on the screen. Bakugo stood beside him. Izuku's expression changed. They found us. The goblin voice laughed. Finally. Izuku reached for his mask. We should leave. Why? Because we're not ready. You never say that. Izuku stopped. The voice continued. You're afraid. Izuku stared at his reflection. I'm being cautious. You're afraid of him. Bakugo's face appeared on the monitor. Izuku's hand tightened. Shut up. The laboratory doors suddenly exploded inward. Boom. Smoke filled the corridor. Aizawa entered first. Bakugo followed. Deku. Izuku stepped out from the darkness wearing his armor. The green lenses of his mask illuminated the room. You really should stop breaking things. Bakugo raised his hands. We're taking you home. Izuku laughed softly. Home? Yeah, I don't have one anymore. Bakugo's expression tightened. You do. Izuku looked away. The goblin voice whispered. Attack. Izuku hesitated. Bakugo noticed. Deku. Izuku raised his gauntlet. Crack. Electricity surged. Aizawa activated his quirk. The green glow around Izuku's body suddenly vanished. His enhanced strength disappeared. Izuku stumbled. Damn it. Aizawa's capture weapon wrapped around his arm. Bakugo rushed forward. Izuku reached for a pumpkin bomb. Bakugo blasted it from his hand. Boom. The explosion knocked both of them backward. Stop fighting me. Bakugo shouted. Izuku stared at him. Then stop chasing me. No. Bakugo grabbed his arm. I'm not losing you again. Izuku froze. The goblin voice became furious. Break free. Izuku's eyes widened. His breathing became heavier. I can't. Bakugo tightened his grip. Yes, you can. There's something wrong with me. I know. Izuku looked at him. Bakugo's expression softened. That's why we're here. Aizawa lowered his capture weapon slightly. We have a way to help. Izuku stared at them. An antidote. Bakugo nodded. We're making one. Izuku's voice became quiet. What if it kills me? Then we'll find another one. What if it doesn't work? Then we'll make another. Izuku looked at Bakugo. For once, there was no anger in his face. Only determination. The goblin voice whispered. Don't trust them. Izuku closed his eyes. Just this once. He slowly lowered his hands. Bakugo released his grip. The green goblin stood silently in the center of the ruined laboratory. And for the first time, Izuku wasn't trying to escape. The laboratory was quiet. Izuku sat at the main workbench, surrounded by dismantled weapons and unfinished machines. The antidote sat inside a small refrigerated container nearby. He had agreed to cooperate. At least, that was what everyone thought. The goblin voice had other plans. They're coming. Izuku looked at the security monitors. Several figures were moving through the underground entrance. Aizawa, Bakugo, a few pro-heroes. Izuku sighed. They really found us. Of course they did. Izuku stood and reached for his mask. We should leave. The goblin voice laughed. No. Izuku stopped. What? We built this place for a reason. The lights suddenly turned green. One by one, several hidden screens activated. The laboratory doors locked. Mechanical gliders descended from the ceiling. Izuku stared at them. He had built them months ago. He had never used them together. You want to fight them? Yes. Izuku hesitated. Then he heard an explosion. Boom. The main entrance shook. Aizawa's voice echoed through the corridor. Midoriya, come out. Izuku closed his eyes. I don't want to hurt them. Then don't. The goblin voice whispered. Just make sure they can't reach you. Izuku put on the mask. The green lenses illuminated. Fine. The doors exploded inward. Boom. Aizawa entered with his capture weapon ready. Bakugo followed closely behind. Deku. Nothing answered. Then the lights went out. A green glow appeared above them. Roar. A glider dropped from the ceiling. Aizawa immediately activated his quirk. The green energy around the machines vanished. Now, Bakugo launched himself upward. Boom. The glider dodged at the last moment. 3 more gliders activated behind it. Bakugo's eyes widened. There are more. Izuku flew through the laboratory. You should have brought more people. Bakugo chased him. Stop running. I'm not running. Izuku turned sharply. I'm repositioning. He pressed a button. Several razor bats flew from the walls. Slash. Aizawa dodged the first wave. Another group flew toward the pro-heroes. The heroes blocked them. Crack. The bats discharged electricity. They're automated. One hero shouted. Obviously. Izuku replied. Bakugo blasted several drones apart. Boom. Stop hiding behind machines. Izuku smiled beneath the mask. That's literally what machines are for. He fired 2 pumpkin bombs. Boom. Green smoke filled the room. Aizawa wrapped his capture weapon around one of the gliders. He pulled. The machine crashed into the floor. Crack. Izuku immediately released another glider. It swept toward Aizawa. Aizawa jumped. The machine passed beneath him. Bakugo appeared behind Izuku. Got you. Izuku twisted. Bakugo's palm exploded beside his head. Boom. The blast knocked him off the glider. Izuku crashed onto the workbench. Metal scattered across the floor. Bakugo landed nearby. You're done. Izuku slowly stood. You've said that before. This time I mean it. Izuku looked toward the antidote container. Bakugo noticed. His expression changed. That's the antidote. Izuku stepped in front of it. Don't touch it. Why? Because it's not finished. Bakugo stared at him. Then let us help. The goblin voice whispered. Destroy them. Izuku's hand trembled. Bakugo noticed. Deku. Izuku suddenly activated his gauntlet. Crack. Electricity surged. Bakugo raised his arms. I don't want to fight you. Then leave. No. Izuku's mask tilted slightly. Why? Bakugo stared directly at him. Because you're my friend. Silence. The goblin voice hissed. Weak. Izuku's breathing became heavier. Then alarms suddenly blared. The laboratory began shaking. A damaged glider had crashed into the reactor controls. Warning lights flashed across the walls. Oh. That's bad. Aizawa looked toward the machinery. What did you build down here? Izuku looked at the reactor. Something that should not be exploding. Boom. The floor shook again. Izuku immediately moved. Everyone out. Bakugo grabbed his arm. What about you? I built it. Izuku pulled free. I'll shut it down. He ran toward the reactor. The goblin voice screamed. Leave it. Izuku ignored him. He reached the control panel. Sparks flew from the damaged machinery. Crack. Izuku typed rapidly. Come on. The system refused to respond. Manual override. He opened the panel. Inside, several cables were burning. Izuku reached for them. Bakugo suddenly appeared beside him. Move. What? Bakugo blasted the damaged section. Boom. The machinery separated. The reactor began stabilizing. Izuku stared at him. Bakugo grinned. You're not the only genius here. Izuku laughed quietly. That's debatable. The laboratory finally stopped shaking. Aizawa approached them. Enough. Izuku looked at him. Aizawa's expression was calm. Come with us. Izuku looked around the laboratory. The gliders. The machines. The weapons. Everything he had built. Then he looked at Bakugo. For several seconds, he said nothing. The goblin voice whispered one last time. You belong here. Izuku slowly removed his mask. Maybe. He looked at the ruined laboratory. But I don't want to anymore. Bakugo stepped closer. Then come home. Izuku looked at him. And for once, he didn't argue. The laboratory was finally quiet. Most of the heroes had already left with the equipment they had recovered. The antidote was secured inside a protective case, ready for the final stage of the treatment. Izuku stood near the damaged glider, staring at it. Bakugo approached from behind. You're not getting on that thing again. Izuku glanced over his shoulder. Wasn't planning to. Good. A small smile appeared on Izuku's face. You're getting better at giving orders. Shut up. Before either of them could say anything else, a sharp alarm echoed through the laboratory. Izuku looked toward the monitors. One of the remaining automated gliders had activated. That's impossible. The machine suddenly crashed through the ceiling. Boom. Izuku jumped aside as debris scattered across the room. The glider flew upward, carrying another figure. The green mask. The goblin armor. Izuku froze. That's not me. Bakugo looked up. Then who the hell is that? The figure laughed. The voice sounded distorted through the speakers. You really thought you could get rid of me? Izuku's eyes widened. The goblin persona, not physically separate, but somehow controlling one of the automated machines through the neural interface. Get out of my head. The voice laughed. You can't. The glider shot through the broken ceiling. Roar. Izuku immediately grabbed another glider. Bakugo stared at him. You're going after it? Yes. Alone. Izuku looked at him. Do you honestly think I'll let that thing fly around wearing my face? Bakugo grinned. Finally. Something we agree on. He jumped onto another glider. Izuku activated the controls. Roar. The two machines launched into the night. The city stretched beneath them. The rogue glider moved between skyscrapers at incredible speed. Izuku followed. It's using my old flight patterns. Bakugo flew beside him. Then predict it. Izuku focused. The glider suddenly turned left. Izuku followed. Then it dropped. Izuku dropped with it. A pumpkin bomb flew backward. Look out. Boom. Bakugo was thrown sideways. Damn it. Izuku accelerated. The rogue glider suddenly turned upward. Izuku followed. It's heading for the clouds. Bakugo looked at him. Why? Because it knows we can't maneuver as easily up there. Then let's prove it wrong. Both gliders climbed. Roar. The city lights disappeared beneath the clouds. Wind battered their armor. Izuku's sensors struggled to track the target. Then the rogue glider emerged from the clouds. It fired several explosive projectiles. Boom. Izuku twisted between them. Bakugo blasted one apart. Boom. How long can you keep doing this? Izuku checked the controls. Not long. Great. Thanks. The rogue glider suddenly flew directly toward Izuku. He prepared to dodge. At the last second, it changed direction. Izuku's eyes widened. It's baiting us. The machine struck Bakugo's glider. Crack. Bakugo lost control. Bakugo. He fell. Izuku immediately dove after him. Roar. He caught Bakugo's arm. The two continued falling. Let go. Absolutely not. You'll crash. I've survived worse. Bakugo looked at him. You're an idiot. Takes one to know one. Izuku pulled the glider upward. The machine barely recovered before they slammed into a rooftop. Crack. Both rolled across the surface. Bakugo stood first. We're doing this my way. Izuku looked at him. What's your way? I distract it. Bakugo pointed upward. You get close. Izuku shook his head. That's reckless. You have a better idea. Izuku paused. No. Then shut up. Bakugo launched himself. Boom. The explosion propelled him into the air. The rogue glider turned toward him. Izuku accelerated from behind. The goblin voice laughed. You won't catch me. Izuku ignored it. He activated the neural interface. The rogue glider suddenly stopped. Izuku's eyes widened. Got you. He hacked into the machine. The two systems fought for control. Green symbols flashed across his visor. Come on. The rogue glider resisted. The goblin voice screamed inside his mind. You're nothing without me. Izuku gritted his teeth. I built you. And I made you strong. You made me afraid. The machine shook violently. Bakugo landed beside him. Deku. Izuku looked at him. I need 10 seconds. You've got 5. Very encouraging. Bakugo blasted the rogue glider. Boom. Its engine sputtered. Izuku seized control. The machine began falling. Got it. He redirected it toward an empty rooftop. Crash. The rogue glider shattered. The green mask rolled across the ground. Izuku jumped down. He picked it up. The mask stared back at him. Then its eyes lit up. "You can't destroy me." Izuku tightened his grip. "Maybe not." Bakugo landed beside him. "But we can stop you." Izuku looked at him. Bakugo nodded toward the antidote container attached to his belt. "We finish this tonight." Izuku stared at the mask. The goblin voice began laughing again. "Then come on." Izuku put the mask down. "No." He stepped away from it. "You come out." The laughter stopped. For the first time, the goblin voice sounded uncertain. Izuku looked toward the approaching heroes in the distance. "This ends now." And beneath the clouds, the final battle for control of Izuku Midoriya's mind was about to begin. The rooftop was silent. The broken goblin mask rested on the concrete between Izuku and Bakugo. Sirens echoed somewhere below. Izuku stared at the mask. "It's over." The goblin voice answered immediately. "No." Izuku's expression hardened. "Yes. You need me. I don't." The mask suddenly activated. Green light flooded the rooftop. Izuku staggered backward. "What the?" The goblin voice became louder. "You created me." The world around Izuku disappeared. Izuku opened his eyes. He was standing inside his own laboratory. Everything looked exactly as it had before. The machines were intact. The gliders hung from the ceiling. The green lights flickered overhead. Then footsteps echoed behind him. Izuku turned. The green goblin stood there. The armor looked perfect. The mask was complete. "Welcome back." Izuku clenched his fists. "You're not real. Neither is this place." The goblin removed its mask. Izuku stared at his own face. But the expression was different. Crueler. More confident. "We're the same." "No. You built the formula. I made a mistake. You made me." The goblin stepped closer. "Every time you were angry, I was there." Izuku backed away. "Every time you wanted revenge." "Stop." "Every time you wanted to prove everyone wrong." "Shut up." The goblin smiled. "You needed me." Izuku suddenly punched him. Crack. The goblin stumbled backward. Then laughed. Finally. He punched Izuku back. Boom. Izuku crashed through a laboratory table. He rolled across the floor. "You're stronger." "Of course." The goblin rushed forward. Izuku blocked the first strike. Then the second. The third knocked him into a wall. "You can't beat me." Izuku wiped blood from his mouth. "You're talking a lot." The goblin laughed. "That's because I'm winning." Izuku looked around. The laboratory was filled with weapons. His weapons. He reached for a pumpkin bomb. The goblin stopped him. "Those won't work here." Izuku threw it anyway. Boom. The explosion swallowed the room. When the smoke cleared, the goblin was still standing. "Told you." Izuku looked at his hands. Then he noticed something. The goblin had always copied his movements. Every dodge, every attack, every strategy. Izuku smiled. "You're predictable." The goblin's expression changed. "What?" Izuku rushed forward. He feinted left. The goblin moved to counter. Izuku changed direction. Crack. His fist struck the goblin's chest. The goblin stumbled. Izuku followed with another attack. Boom. The goblin crashed into the wall. "You learned everything from me." The goblin slowly stood. "And you learned everything from me." Izuku charged again. The goblin met him head-on. Their fists collided. Boom. The laboratory shook. Both staggered backward. "You can't erase me." The goblin screamed. Izuku stared at him. "I don't need to." The goblin paused. "What?" "I just need to control myself." Izuku walked forward. "You're part of what happened to me." The goblin raised his fists. "Then I'll always be part of you." "Maybe." Izuku grabbed the goblin's mask. "But you don't get to drive." He pulled. Crack. The mask broke. The green armor began disappearing. The goblin screamed. No. Izuku kept pulling. This is my mind. The goblin dissolved into green particles. You can't get rid of me. Izuku watched the particles fade. I don't have to. The last fragment disappeared. I just have to choose. Izuku opened his eyes. He was back on the rooftop. Bakugo was kneeling beside him. Deku. Izuku took a deep breath. The green glow in his eyes was gone. Bakugo looked relieved. You okay? Izuku slowly sat up. I think so. A medical team approached. One of them held the antidote. We need to administer it now. Izuku nodded. Do it. The injection entered his arm. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then his muscles relaxed. The pain that had followed him for months began to fade. Izuku closed his eyes. The goblin voice was gone. Completely. Bakugo watched him carefully. You still there? Izuku opened one eye. Unfortunately. Bakugo laughed. Idiot. Izuku smiled faintly. Missed you too. Bakugo looked away. Shut up. The broken green mask remained on the rooftop. Izuku looked at it one last time. Then he turned away. For the first time since the goblin formula had entered his body, there was only one voice in his head. His own. 3 months had passed since the night the goblin formula was neutralized. Izuku was no longer hiding. He was still under observation at UA. But the medical team had confirmed that the formula was no longer altering his brain chemistry. The green goblin persona was gone. The armor, however, remained locked inside a secured storage room. Izuku stood in front of it for several seconds. The old mask rested on a shelf. Its cracked lenses stared back at him. Bakugo stood beside him. You planning to keep staring at it? Izuku crossed his arms. I'm remembering how much money I wasted. Bakugo snorted. That's what you're thinking about. Have you seen how expensive titanium is? Bakugo rolled his eyes. You're unbelievable. Izuku smiled. I've been told. Aizawa entered the room. Midoriya. Izuku turned. Yes, sir. The commission has made a decision. Izuku's expression became serious. Am I going to prison? Not exactly. Aizawa handed him a document. Your crimes can't simply be ignored. But your cooperation, the absence of fatalities, and your work developing the antidote were considered. Izuku read the document. His eyes widened. Rehabilitation and supervised research. Bakugo looked over his shoulder. So he's allowed to build things again. Under supervision. Izuku smiled. That's still better than prison. Aizawa sighed. Don't make me regret it. Months later, Izuku entered a new laboratory. It was smaller than his old one. There were no weapons, no explosives, no combat gliders. Instead, the room was filled with rescue equipment. Support drones, emergency communication devices, compact medical machines. Izuku adjusted the settings on a small robot. This one can locate survivors beneath rubble. Bakugo looked at the machine. And it doesn't explode. That's the goal. Good. Izuku pressed a button. The robot rolled forward. A small screen displayed a map of the building. It can detect heat signatures and breathing patterns. Aizawa watched from the doorway. That's useful. Izuku smiled. I told you I could make useful things without blowing them up. Bakugo immediately interrupted. You blew up 3 prototypes yesterday. Izuku pointed at him. Those were controlled explosions. One hit my face. Your face survived. Barely. Aizawa rubbed his forehead. I already regret this. The following year, the support department officially adopted several of Izuku's designs. His rescue drones became common equipment. His improved mobility systems helped heroes move through damaged buildings. Even the glider technology was redesigned. It was no longer a weapon. It became a rescue platform capable of carrying injured civilians from dangerous areas. Izuku stood beside the newest model. The machine hovered silently. Bakugo looked at it. You really changed it. Izuku nodded. It doesn't need weapons. Good. Although, Izuku glanced at him. I could add a small rocket. Bakugo immediately smacked the back of his head. No. Worth asking. One evening, Izuku stood on the roof of U.A. The city stretched beneath him. There were lights everywhere, heroes moving between buildings, rescue drones crossing the sky. For a moment, he remembered the old days. The green armor, the mask, the laughter, the feeling of controlling the city from above. He closed his eyes, then opened them. Nothing whispered inside his head. Only silence. Bakugo walked onto the roof. You coming? Izuku looked at him. Where? Training. Izuku smiled. You still haven't learned when to stop. Neither have you. Izuku laughed. Fair. They walked toward the training grounds together. Behind them, the old goblin glider remained inside the secured storage room. It had once been a weapon of terror. Now it was nothing more than a reminder of how far Izuku had come. He had never become the hero he originally imagined. He had never forgotten what he had done. But he had found another way to help people. Not with a mask, not with bombs, not with a villain's laugh. With his own hands. And this time, the person controlling them was Izuku Midoriya.
Alright, now that we've gone through the entire story, let's move on to the key educational lessons and takeaways hidden within it. Rejection should fuel innovation, not destruction. Deku's tragic fall as the Green Goblin teaches us that taking dangerous shortcuts out of desperation or resentment can corrupt even the best intentions. True strength isn't about letting bitterness drive you toward destruction, but using your natural talents, intellect, and resilience to heal, build, and positively impact the world around you. Maybe that's all for today's video. Like if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment if you have any title suggestions for the next video. Alright, that's it, and see you in the next video.